This is You and the Police, and you're watching our first episode for the year 2019. I am Wendy Lai and do have a happy new year. This week we will be looking at Ghana's perennial ethnic clashes. Although Ghana is ranked the 43rd in the World Peace Index and referred to as one of the most peaceful countries in West Africa, the emergence of the ethnic and tribal conflicts are denting the hard-earned reputation of the country. On You and the Police this week, we will be finding out from experts in relation to security on how well security agencies, governments and other stakeholders have handled such conflicts and the way forward. We will bring you highlights. These are crime-related stories that you might have missed during the week, as well as safety tips. Do stay. It's now time for crime highlights, and these are crime-related stories that you might have missed during the week. Please do stay.
Three of the Men's Gold customers who embarked on a protest at the company's branch at Amakom in Kumasi have been arrested by the police for violating the Public Order Act. They were also charged for verbally abusing police officers during the demonstration. The aggrieved customers of Men's Gold blocked a section of the main Tech Edum Road and burnt car tires in front of the gold dealership firm at Amakom in Kumasi. The demonstrators had planned to march to the Ministerial Palace to petition the Asante-Hene over the failure of managers of Men's Gold to refund their investment. This was also foiled by the police for lack of permits. The police also prevented the demonstrators from causing damage to the Men's Gold office. The Ashanti Regional Police Public Relations Officer, ASP Godwin Ahianyo, says the police will continue to monitor the situation. The aggrieved customers served notice to continue with their protest until their money is released to them. Last year, more than 200 customers besieged the company's head office at Jolu in Accra to demand payment of their locked-up investment. The company has since petitioned Parliament to help it resolve its regulatory issues with the Securities and Exchange Commission to enable it to pay all entitlement owed its clients. Government has announced a compensation package totaling 1.75 million cedis to be paid to families of the victims of last year's Asawase shooting incident. President Akufo-Addo, who made this known at the Zango for Peace and Development Conference in the Ashanti Regional Capital, said 250,000 cedis will be paid to each of the 7 families of the deceased. The shooting and killing of 7 Zango youth by the police led to a series of protests by aggrieved residents of Asawase and other Zango communities. While the police claimed that the deceased were armed robbers, relatives insisted on their innocence. An independent committee tasked to investigate the shooting exonerated the deceased in its findings. The government also interdicts the police officers involved in the shooting incident. At the Maiden Zango for Peace and Development Conference, President Akufo-Addo announced the compensation package. He assured the public that the process will be followed in the pursuit of justice and called 55 police officers have been promoted by the police administration effective January 1, 2019. The promotions are administrative and in line with the officers satisfying provisions in Regulation 37 of the Police Service Regulation 2012 CI 76. 8 assistant commissioners were promoted to the rank of deputy commissioners, 1 superintendent to chief superintendent, and 7 deputy superintendent to the rank of superintendents. A total of 114 assistant superintendents were also promoted to the rank of deputy superintendent to complete the list of senior officers. 243 inspectors were promoted to chief inspectors, 719 sergeants to the rank of inspectors, and 1,020 corporals moving up to the rank of sergeants. The rest are 34 lance corporals to the rank of corporals and 9 constables, rank of lance corporals. The Tema Regional CID is investigating a murder case in which the suspect, Francis Apia, a 42-year-old Mason, is alleged to have stabbed Muhammad Tijani to death. The deceased is said to have assaulted the suspect on December 29, 2018. According to the police, the suspect reported the case to the Community Aid Police, where he was issued a medical form to go to the hospital for treatment. On January 2, the deceased and 5 others attacked him and hit the suspect's head with a stone. The suspect went back to the police and reported and was again issued with a medical form. However, the deceased kept on escaping police arrest. On January 3, around 8:30 a.m., the deceased, who was then holding a knife, is alleged to have attacked the suspect. The suspect is alleged to have overpowered the deceased, took the knife and stabbed him. The body of the deceased has been kept at the Tema Regional General Hospital morgue.
So for our story of the week, we'll be focusing on Ghana's perennial ethnic clashes. Although Ghana is ranked 43rd in the World Peace Index and referred to as one of the most peaceful countries in West Africa, the emergence of ethnic and tribal conflicts are denting the hard-earned reputation of the country. The northern region, for instance, accounts for the chunk of these disturbing tribal conflicts involving mostly the Kukumbas, the Nanumbas, the Gonjas, and the Dagomba ethnic groupings, among others. Reference can be made to the 1980s Gonja-Vagla-Tuna conflict and the Bimbila-King affairs, the Bupe chieftaincy affairs, and more. These conflicts are often triggered by factors such as ethnic and chieftaincy conflicts, political intolerance, resource-based conflicts, or land disputes. Also, religious conflicts, among others. Other remote causes bordered on, but not limited to, secession to high offices, land ownership, superiority and inferiority complexes, pride and discrimination against perceived ethnic minority groups becoming threats to national security and peace, leading to internal and international displacements of people and eventually slowing down national development. For this week, we will be finding out from experts how well security agencies and governments have handled such conflicts and the way forward. These experts will be joining me shortly in the studio for us to have this interaction.
For over 2 decades, tribal and ethnic conflicts resolutions in some parts of the country and peace building have become topical issues in debates and discussions in the country. This is not only because of the recurrent and protracted nature of such conflicts, but also because of their negative impacts on socio-economic and political developments. Northern Ghana, for instance, has witnessed a number of repeated ethno-political violence conflicts over the past 2 decades, with some of these conflicts degenerating into security or annual rituals. Security experts and governance experts have expressed worry about the increasing number of violent conflicts in the country. They've also called for more practical and ingenious approaches in managing recurrent conflict situations. These approaches, they are said, would help in the peace-building process.
This is You and the Please, and tonight we're discussing conflict, be it tribal or ethnic conflict. And this evening, I do have in the studio 3 gentlemen who are in the security industry and have played several roles when it comes to security here in our country. From my far left, I do have Adib San. He is a security analyst. Next to him is ACP David Eklu, is the Director General Public Affairs, Ghana Police Service. And then I also have Dr. Chuku Emeka Eze. He's Executive Director of WANEP. Good evening, gentlemen, and thanks for your time. Now, let me start our conversation, but I'll first start with you, ACP Eklu. You have been at the forefront when it comes to dealing with security, and we're zeroing into tribal and ethnic conflicts. From where you sit, do you think that your service and other agencies in relation to security have handled this issue as they should?
I would say that to some extent, yes. When ethnic or tribal conflicts erupt, especially where violence becomes very high, we are normally the first respondents by police presence to at least calm the situation down, while the other aspects of security are handled. I'm saying yes because we've not had full-scale tribal conflict to the extent that external intervention is required. So we have, to some extent, be able to handle it at a local level. But there is still more to be done because we still record it. Sometimes the conflict, subside. They come to a lull, and then we all go on that assumption that everything has ended. Then something happens, and then it triggers and sparks off. So it is on and off. So to that extent, we have not been able to completely solve it, but at least we've managed it to an acceptable level.
Dr. Eze, do you buy into what he's saying? Are you of the view that they have handled the matter somewhat in a way that is being controlled?
I think we need to begin to reconceptualize the issues relating to ethnic conflict and as it relates to the police. Like he rightly said, they are the first responders when it comes to violent conflicts. But those periods leading up to the violence, the police does not have what it takes in terms of conflict prevention to deal with those issues. Not because they are not equipped, but in some aspects, it's not even within the Police Act that they deal with issues relating to conflict transformation. There's also the notion that conflict is resolved. I don't think so. I think that's why a lot of people are talking about conflict transformation today, because conflict is part and parcel of the society. And if you look at our own trajectory, be it from the period of slave trade up to the period of colonial period, we have had distortions in terms of our arrangements, about our social arrangements. And therefore, what that brings up from time to time is some of these ethnic issues, chieftaincy crises, land disputes, because things have been distorted over a period of time. Now, what happens always is that the period between when the police quench the violence and the moment that is needed for conflict transformation, we lose traction.
Okay, let me just hold you there and go to Sunny. Your take on the conversation and how security service, that's the police has handled
Well, I do
ethnic and
agree.
tribal
I do agree with my two senior colleagues over the fact that humans by nature are always in a state of conflict. When before you come to onto this set, you might have disagreed with your producer on perhaps what type of line to read and all that. That means you're in a state of conflict. But according to writers like Maslow and Burton, Marx and Weber, when you go into it, you might have a fair understanding about what I'm talking about. And our ability to manage that conflict so it doesn't metamorphose into belligerence is what determines whether we're successful in that regard or not. And I think for far too long we have not really given so much credence to the early warning signals. I know Mr. Eze, it's not my first time meeting him. WANEC developed something like that. I think at the ECOWAS sub-regional level we have the early warning signals, and even at the AU level. And our inability to focus on that and address the deep-rooted socio-economic and geopolitical factors is what culminates into this violence. And when you look at it from a conflict analytical perspective, we have a number of theories that can be used to make sense of what is happening. There's a theory called the PIN theory, position, interest, need theory, more like an onion, which has an outer layer, a midsection, and a very inner. So when two people are fighting, the media reports that two people are fighting because Mr. A stepped on Mr. B's foot, all right? But for conflict analysts, we make an attempt to go beyond Mr. A stepping on Mr. B and identify, like has rightly been said by Mr. Eze, the deep-rooted causes, which are usually unemployment, mismanagement of resources, corruption, etc. So by identifying those and taking advantage of state resources and even the presence of civil society organizations, we should be able to a very large extent prevent some of these conflicts from even happening in the first place.
I asked Dr. Eze a specific question about the role of the police when it comes to dealing with tribal conflicts and ethnic conflicts, and he did mention that, of course, and we all do agree that the police doesn't work alone when it comes to this. But how would you describe or evaluate the role of the police when it comes to this?
Well, the police has a very important role to play, and I must indicate without mincing words that the police has played a very critical role in harnessing our democratic tenets, especially since the inception of the Fourth Republic. And the police has a very constricted role to play in preventing some of these, all right? But sometimes in conflict situations, you have the police going in with the military, and they are able to stop the belligerents in the entering. But I think the police can do better when they harness their relationship with the communities in which they operate, based on mutual trust and respect. My center, Jetske Center for Human Security and Peace Building, somewhere last year, did a survey of about 300 Ghanaians. We asked them why they own weapons, and many of them, I must indicate, said they couldn't trust the police to protect them. And even if the police cannot protect themselves, when you have criminals storming police stations and, you know, killing an officer. Just last week or two, we had a very notorious kidnapper escaping from police cells. How much more can the police defend themselves? So I think the police has a lot of confidence building work to do. By so doing, you would get the people involved in the security process, because for now, I think we have about 32,000 police officers. And when you look at the numbers, the ratio for each police officer, we have about 900 citizens, but the best UN standards, I mean, puts it at one police officer to about 500 citizens. So that means we cannot have the police everywhere all the time. Hence the need for people to be part of that process.
Okay. Now, Dr. Zay, you work with a regional bloc, and here in our country, just in recent times, talk of some few days ago, we've had conflicts up north. Now, we've mentioned that the police cannot work on its own. We need stakeholders to ensure that we have the peace we want as a country. What do we do? Talk of government, talk of civil society organizations like yours, talk of the police and traditional authorities, talk of religious authorities. How best can we come to a point? Because the conversation comes up over and over again. There are meetings that are held, RECSEC, everybody talks about it. When the issue dies off a bit, and then we go to sleep. What do we need to do? What continuous effort do we need to put in place to ensure that we have a lasting solution to this problem?
I think we need to have a peace policy that is alive. We shouldn't have a peace policy of today speak to the issues of tomorrow. And that's why conflict in itself and the resolution of conflict does not take a linear progression. You can make effort. You can still go back even to some of the issues that you have made success over a period of time. Now, I think the first thing we need to do is that the government and political elites need to have confidence in the police. I don't see that happen. And that's why if all of us, including the political elites, have confidence in the police, we don't need to invest in vigilante group, for example. What we need to do is to invest in the police and trust the police to protect every citizen. And then it becomes a leveler. The second thing we need to do is to create opportunity for this stakeholders partnership. Everybody has something to bring on the table as far as security is concerned. And then we need to invest in citizens' welfare. When we invest in citizens' welfare, there will be less effort on hardcore security. Because hardcore security takes a while. And as it's normally called in some parlance, it is called peace enforcement. So what the police does, or even the army, is to forcefully make people peaceful over a period of time. But that has a time frame. Thereafter, then you put in place issues relating to dialogue processes, issues relating to addressing the root causes of the conflict, issues relating to citizens' cohesion and coexistence. These are all issues that take over a period of time. And like I said, at some point, you need to take a pause and review such strategy. And then include that as part and parcel of state development plan. So the police plan, if you talk about crime, they'll tell you what to do about crime. But these are not issues relating to crime. These are deep-rooted issues that probably takes root from even prior to colonial period. How do you deal with people's emotions? These are not areas where police can just handle in one effort and leave and exit. People are deeply hurt over issues that had happened over 100 years. And then, in just one intervention, you think you have solved that? That is where I see the gap.
Now, Sani, Dr. Eze has mentioned some salient points here, and I'm sure this is not the very first time he's touched on things like this. If I can call you a local player here, you've followed the ins and outs of such situations. Do you see us heading towards the pointers he's raised?
Well, I think for years on end, we have concentrated too much on peacekeeping rather than peace building. We believe so much in the position of state of emergency and, curfews, and we think we've dealt a final blow to the issue on the ground. But it goes way beyond that. So I agree, hook, line, and sinker with Dr. Eze over the fact that there's the need for a policy document on perhaps security, like it is in Liberia, Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, South Africa, and a whole host of other countries, even including the US, which is usually renewed after every 4 years. But of course, there's that room for it to be even renewed before the 4-year period. But I am stating categorically that that policy should go beyond the hard security way we see security in the country, but give credence to the human security aspect of security as outlined in the 1994 UNDP report, which takes into consideration economic security, community, environmental, political, health, food security, etc. By identifying those, we should be able to, at least to a greater extent, give the people the basic necessities of life, so they will be able to survive, they will be able to fend for themselves, and to a very large extent it would interest you to know that it will help.
As the police service, what really do you have the support of the stakeholders as you wish or as you want, and how best do you think you can bring all stakeholders together? Like they've mentioned, it's not a touch and go affair. We work on it and then we forget about it. Yeah. Do you have the support you need? And from your very own point of view, how best can you rally around to ensure that that ongoing process of ensuring peace happens?
Yeah, I think my two colleagues here have made very important points, valid points, of course, because hitherto we used to define security in terms of uniform, the weapons, the guns, and uniform presence, and we think that is security. But for now, we all have the understanding that security even goes beyond that. And the last point should even be the uniform. So the foundation should be laid, identify all the role players, even the role of the state, in even preventing. Because if you look at the functions of the Ghana Police Service, the primary function is to prevent crime. And of course, prevent some of these issues that cause public disorder. So we need to redefine it and see how. I'm glad Doctor mentioned a security policy. I know we have the National Peace Council, and then under the security architecture, we have the National Security Council Secretariat, we have the Regional Security Council, districts, and then the municipal to some extent. But do we integrate maybe civil society? Do we integrate conflict analysts into this security architecture, so that because the RECSEC or the district security DISEC are supposed to be early warning apparatus, so that they can identify early warning signs and inform national security to see how these issues can be, prevented before they even escalate. So it is very important that we really take a look at the national security policy and see whether the police functions can be, or other functions can be integrated into policing. We seem to define policing only as arrest, prosecution, and that's the dramatic aspect, but the preventive aspect of policing is not well defined or not overlooked. For example, we are in about 5 conflict zones in the country. We are in Boku, we are in Yendi, we are in Japekrum, we are in Konya, Alavanyo. But what role do the security agencies play there? How do they interact with the actors to make sure that conflict don't erupt? Those aspects are not well articulated. And if I am assigned to be the commander for Alavanyo task force, maybe in Alavanyo Punya area, how do I identify maybe Dr. Nze's place or my brother's place so that we can work together? Those are issues that it will depend. Sometimes it will depend on the understanding of the officer on security, or the initiative of the officer. But if there are documented policies that, look, if there is conflict in Boku and you go there, these are the various actors you need to work with, and these are the parameters. And then there's also an indication of impact that you have made. If we have this well documented, I believe that we are expanding the scope of security.
But are they forthcoming in any way while we wait for this policy and documentation?
They do. On the informal basis, we have just mentioned to Doctor that I'll be visiting his office to see how we can all share, because we are into crime prevention education. But it is based on my own initiative. But if we have a kind of policy that, look, beyond arrest and prosecution, these are the other areas that we can explore in conjunction with identified groups, I think that it can guide a lot of officers. It becomes a broad-based activity. It doesn't depend on the initiative of the commander alone, but it can become one of the policies of policing, of course, in the country.
Okay. And that'll be all for tonight's first episode for the year 2019. And this week, we focused on tribal and ethnic conflicts, the role of stakeholders, and the way forward in ensuring that we do have lasting peace in our country, Ghana. We also brought you some crime highlights. These are crime stories you might have missed during the week. I am Wendy Lai. Do join us same time next week, Friday. Thanks for watching and have a lovely weekend.